Good.
There we go. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to jump right in and nothing is off
Great.
the
I'm
table.
going to turn my do not disturb on so that now I've got it on. Okay, there we go.
Okay, great, great. So I was going to just say, before we get into it, I'll do an official intro before
Of
we
course.
do this, everything. I'll edit it and put it all together. But nothing is off limits or anything, feel free to drop
Uh,
F-bombs or whatever you want.
oh, thank you very much. The only off limits thing for me is saying the terrorist name in any part of it,
Yep.
but I doubt you would do that anyway. I just say that every time. So,
Yep, no
yeah.
worries. And I actually
Awesome.
read that. Yeah.
How did you know I drop F bombs? I can't imagine it.
I was listening to something else and you were on and
Oh,
you
good. I now have a reputation.
no. You
No, it's
actually
fine. It's
said
fine.
the letter F. And I was like, oh, she didn't have to do that with me. She could say whatever
Oh,
she wants.
yeah. It's so funny. I'm checking my lighting here. I can't
Yeah, me too. We all
early.
good?
Um, it's so good to talk to you. Thank you for this invitation.
Yeah, you know what? I want to start by thanking you actually because you're very sought after as a speaker. We're going to get into that and talk about what you're doing today. And also you don't know me. All these people, are reaching out to you. And I thought for sure when I reached out to you that I would get a PR person or something, but sure enough, it was you.
You got me. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I-
I'm a two-woman show. I have an assistant, but I'm a hands-on person. So I don't have an agent. I am my own agent. I'm
yeah.
not anti-agent, but I've hired two over the years, and each time I've hired someone, the first one I hired, and then all of a sudden I got an IMAX movie, but that was in my own email. That wasn't through them. And the next time I thought, oh, maybe I should hire one. Maybe I should hire one. I hired one, and then I got a Super Bowl commercial, but that was through me, not through them. So I thought, I keep paying these people, but I'm getting good
You're
gigs on my
doing
own.
it all yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm too good or anything like that. But
No,
I also believe fully that and that we can get into this, but
sure.
this goes with my personal life and my professional life, which are very intertwined.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just believe deeply that if you are who you say you are and you act in that way, that the right people will gravitate toward you and the right things will come.
So
Um,
true.
yeah, I just have tried to model that through my business. And so I'm a one woman show, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you reached out. So I'm glad it
Yeah,
worked out
yeah.
timing
And I
wise.
want to talk all about, what your business is today. But of course we have to, discuss how you got to where you are today and all the experiences that you've been through. You're a survivor of the Boston Marathon bombings. And I figured it's kind of good to go back to that and how you ended up in Boston too. I know you grew up in Seattle.
I did.
Yeah.
I grew up right outside of Seattle, Washington, in a little town. At the time, it was just 10 minutes away from Seattle. Now with traffic, I think it's an hour and a half. With all the growth that the Northwest has seen with Amazon and Microsoft and such. But I grew up in Issaquah, which was Microsoft country before it was Microsoft country. So one
Right.
stoplight, a little trick plane airfield, some cows. It was a small town and it was beautiful. And my parents had an independent books and records store in
Oh,
Seattle.
cool.
And I grew up with various bands and artists and illustrators and musicians gathered around and staying at our kitchen table, different ones every night, from
That's so
Eddie
cool.
Vedder to Mickey Grimes to
Get out.
Noah to I remember there are pictures of my brothers and I asleep in the backstage of a Nirvana concert when we were very, very little. It's just my mother works closely with Eddie Vedder's book foundation still, and it was a great childhood to grow up with
So
all of these
cool.
without a television, and with all of, because your parents have a bookstore, can't have a television, and it was a great way to grow up. You just had the bookstore and records and true Seattle grunge hippies,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
raising you with musicians staying over and you know getting
Yeah.
crazy.
I
It was
did
just
hear
in the
you
backyard
mention
with drums and pots and pans and stuff. It was very fun.
well, I did hear you mention that you were adopted, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
And your brothers as well. You have two
My
brothers.
brothers as well. So my brothers are older than me. They're twins. I get to see David on Friday in California. I'm so
Oh,
excited.
cool.
And they're twins and they were adopted. They're obviously birth related to each other because they're twins. My parents adopted them together. They were born in 1976 and they were the first twins that had stayed together. Up until that point, I think either in the US or at least in the state of Oregon. And up until that point, people just assumed that no one would want to adopt two babies at the same time, which is bonkers to think of now. But back then they didn't. So they had called my parents, the adoption agency, and said, we have a baby here, a little boy, if you want one. They're actually two, they're twins, but if you just want one, we understand.
Oh,
and my mom said, I can't believe you would even
bring that up.
We always do. And she was like, oh, no. So she adopted them. And then about 3 years, almost 3 years later, they went back for a baby girl. And
oh, that's amazing. And there's more on that, I guess, coming in a book you're writing?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole adoption story I've been dying to talk about. I actually wrote a book. I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I started and wrote a book to no one's surprise, only because I don't say that as a pat on the back for myself. I say that as in when you're surrounded by writers and they're like, some people grow up on television and you're surrounded by people like Kim Kardashian, think that they're like the coolest. I absolutely do not. I think writers and illustrators and musicians are like the coolest people on earth. And so when you have that, there's sirens in the background. When you have that, you think that writers are like the coolest and you're the coolest if you write. So I grew up writing a lot. My brothers did too. And I wrote a book about my adoption story, finished it when I was like 18, 19 and tried to pitch it to a bunch of people and they had no interest. And then the same people came and were like, you need to write a book when everything happened in 2013.
Like,
so I was like, I did. But it's not very good. It's like a 13-year-old would write it. So working on the second one now and including a lot of that adoption story. That's basically what it's about is telling really the truth about who my birth mother was and why she was really well known. This is non-Googleable. Why she was really well known in the media and how that shaped me and why I got up off that sidewalk. So I've never told the truth on that. So just because I wasn't quite ready. And when I did the interview with Anderson, we talked about it off camera and he said, that's a book, that's not an interview. So I took that advice to heart.
Yeah.
It has a longer explanation than just an interview. So
yeah, you mentioned Anderson, like people should know that's Anderson Cooper.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, no worries. Who you've become good friends with since.
He interviewed me just within the first week. I want to say it was 3 or 4 days after I lost my leg and in the bombing. And he came to the hospital. My mother went out to Copley Square and was like, you should come say hi to my daughter. And went out to Copley Square and he came back with her. And we did an interview where I said I would one day dance again and hopefully run the Boston Marathon. And I was not a runner at the time. I was a professional ballroom dancer by trade, by career, and had been for a very long time. And so he and I really hit it off and we made a little film together called The Survivor Diaries. And it captured, I think it's available on YouTube, I believe. Or it made its way to YouTube after CNN. And we made a movie just documenting my first year as an amputee, what it was like to get my leg and dance again and teaching him how to dance.
I love it. Yeah.
He was really a good guidepost for me in that first year.
Yeah. Let's go back to your dancing when you mentioned that you got into ballroom dancing at a young age.
I did. I mentioned earlier that my parents had the bookstore, so we obviously did not have a television. And I remember being at my aunt and uncle's house, and I was probably 7-ish, and they had on a movie of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, which Fred Astaire is the name of my service dog. Who's
that's Fred, yeah.
Over there on the couch. And they had a movie on. It was a black and white movie called Cheek to Cheek. It was really old then. It's ancient now. It's a beautiful movie. And I saw Ginger Rogers dancing in a silk organza gown and ostrich feathers and just fell madly in love, and decided I wanted to be Ginger Rogers when I grew up. And I immediately enrolled into dance. And, it was kind of a long road to get there, but I was able to make it. I was able to go pro and compete and dance and make that my career. So it was a real gift to be able to do that. And of course, my parents were supportive of that because of being,
Oh,
artsy themselves. They
of
didn't have
course.
an argument to get into
Yeah, I mean, you were showing very early on in your life just, the grit that you have, weren't you?
My mother would call it stubbornness, but yes, I called it grit. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So went on to be, what'd you say, number 3 in the?
Yeah, I was third in the world in my division. And it was, they have different, different divisions, different areas, but for 10 dance, waltz, tango, foxtrot, cha-cha, rumba, swing, paso, samba. Is that 10? See if I still got it. I think that was 8. Oh gosh. Bolero, something else. Oh no, I'm losing it. But it was certainly a huge accomplishment. And I was searching for this perfect, I'm using air quotes right now, this like perfect score and this perfect life and this perfect body and this perfect, you dance in front of people, specifically judges that were usually crusty old white men with numbers from 1 to 10 saying how good or bad your body is.
Yeah.
And that was as healthy as it sounds, which
exactly.
clearly being sarcastic. And that's really tough. But when you're so deeply in it, and that's all you're doing, and you are doing it for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you don't realize you don't have any outside voice or reason or perspective of, hey, maybe, I don't know, maybe dancing around in a sequin bikini is like,
Unhealthy.
and seeking approval all the time is like maybe not what we want to do. So I certainly had supportive friends and family, but they don't see like the everyday stuff that happens, right? And you don't think there's anything wrong with it because that's your normal. That's what everyone in your world is doing. And so that
you enjoyed it, right?
Oh, of course,
You
my
wanted to
gosh,
be in.
yes.
Yeah.
And I miss it dearly.
Yeah.
It is so amazing to work in a space where if you're having a bad moment, it truly only lasts for 30 seconds to a minute flat, because you can turn on any song and be able to dance to any song with a different person in a top hat and tails. All these good looking men, like you can dance with it. You can snap out of a bad mood in seconds, and you get to be on adrenaline and with loud music playing and playing dress up and having shoe sponsors and dress sponsors and traveling. And I mean, it really is as glamorous and dark, but also glamorous as you would imagine. And so I miss that. I miss being in that environment of, and it's still to this day, music can snap me out of almost any mood, because of that. And my body and mind just respond to music in a very different way. And I think that's partially from childhood too, growing up in that environment with all those musicians.
Yeah. And what brought you to Boston?
So my coach at the time, in Seattle, the dance coach, said, if you want to be the best, you need to move to Boston. And I said, why? And he said that you get different coaches from across the pond. And so I mailed in a VHS tape, and that's what you did back then. And mailed in my VHS tape and got the gig and moved to Boston. I didn't know anyone. And I've fallen in love with Boston since, and now I'll never leave.
Yeah.
I travel a lot, but I would never live anywhere else. Yeah.
What year did you get here?
It's a great question. 2010, 2010-ish, I think.
Yeah.
10, 11. Yeah. 10.
So to go back to something, I was listening to another interview of you talking about how you were living in Boston, but didn't really feel like you knew it very well.
Absolutely. You're in the dance studio all the time, and you would wander to like one of 3 restaurants to get takeout to go back to the studio. So I didn't know Boston at all. I mean, you didn't have these big days off where you would just go, wander around and do all these things. So, so I knew it a little, but like not hardly at all. And so in 2013, I took a day off and was wandering around, and it happened to be the Boston Marathon. And I had been in Boston for years, and I had no idea what the marathon was.
You never heard of the
And
marathon.
the dance studio was like, I don't know, 4 blocks from the finish line.
Oh my gosh.
In Park Plaza building.
So close.
Yeah. And I had no idea that the Boston Marathon was a thing.
Yeah.
Because runners and dancers, I guess, just aren't, like, they just don't cross paths. People that sweat in public and honor their body in the most healthy way and eat healthy and do all these things. And then the people that like roll out of bed and take 4 hours to get ready with a spray tan and like fake nails, lashes, the whole thing.
Yeah. They weren't mingling together.
No, we're just somehow not finding each other. So,
there you were.
Yeah, there I was. Around. I was just walking around and took a turn over by Newbury Street, and I heard a bunch of commotion on the next street over, which would be Boylston Street. And I looked over and I thought, oh, look, a parade. Like, there were a bunch of people gathered and cheering and stuff. And I thought, oh, it must be some kind of parade, like on a Monday. That's weird.
Yeah.
And I wandered over and I saw runners, and I asked someone what that was. And they said, that's the Boston Marathon. And I said, oh, is that like runners, right? Like I'm watching these runners and they're like white in the face and crying out of anguish and celebration. And I said, how far is that? Which is hilarious now.
Right.
Because I've run in it
yes,
a few times. And they said, well, it's 26.2 miles. And there I am in high heels, because
that's amazing.
by contract, you need to be in heels all the time because you are training your feet to always be in heels.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It's only the heels and flats that make people's feet hurt, right? If you're always in heels, your feet just give up and don't know any different. So like, this is how we live. So I was in high heels and my spray tan and my hair from the day before and my nails and my lashes and everything. And this guy looked at me and he's like, she knows nothing about running.
He doesn't get it.
I don't know how where is she staying? How do you get a hotel room in Boston and not know it's the marathon? He was like, I don't know who this chick is. Yeah. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then he said, it's 26.2 miles. And I said, for a statement necklace and a free banana, like, that makes no sense to me at all. Why on earth would anyone suffer that much? And so he ended up turning around and just ignoring me because he had given up trying to convince me of what this thing was. And I wonder if that guy even remembers how I looked so different then. And then I decided to still watch, because even though I was a very different athlete than runners, I still respected the sport and I had nothing else to do. And so I walked away from the finish line and a couple blocks away, and the first blast hit behind me. And I saw people running in all different directions. I saw guns drawn from police officers, and I saw a lot of smoke and screaming. And I just thought, this is absolutely a terrorist attack. Like, I just knew right away. There were some people who thought it may be a transformer that blew from, a bunch of media hooking up to things. And I just knew it wasn't. Like, the ground had shaken in such a way that you just sort of knew. And I plugged my ears and I yelled, the next one's going to hit. And I buried my head, and then I was on the ground. And I later learned through surveillance of the participating in the trial that I was actually walking shoulder to shoulder with one of the terrorists, and he dropped the backpack 2 feet from my 2 feet and it went off. Yeah. It was awful. I lost my leg immediately. My lower foot, my ankle and part of my calf was gone. And it was just skin. And anyway, I won't get into too much detail, but it was horrific, and I almost didn't make it, but an off-duty doctor had been there. Thank goodness, because Boston has so many, as you know, so many trauma hospitals, and so many people come down to watch the marathon, and also the medical teams that volunteer at the marathon, especially near the finish line when people are trying hard for their statement necklace and free banana and pass out and do all sorts of crazy things or fall. And one off-duty doctor was there and whipped off his belt and tied a belt around my leg, and then ripped off somebody else's belt and tied it around my right leg. I had a very large gash in my right thigh, and saved my life,
Wow.
which was amazing. He later testified that I absolutely would have died if he hadn't have put those belts around my legs in the time that he did.
I can't imagine not just that experience, but then also participating in the trial the way that you did.
Yeah, it was really hard. I credit my brothers for that, not my brothers, my older brothers, but the other older brothers that I have, coincidentally also named Tim and David, the FBI agents, Tim and David, and the chief of Watertown Police, Ed DeVoe, and the head of prosecution, Steve Mellon, who were all in this hilarious text thread that is just funny. We're very tight, and we grew really tight during the trial. And when I was participating in the trial, you go and you obviously are just telling your story. They're not, telling you what to say. You're just telling your story. But in order for me to tell my story, they needed visual proof that I was there. Obviously, you're testifying, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that they needed to show while I was telling the story was the video of me getting blown up and the subsequent video after. And so because of that, I was watching that for about a year, once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week for about a year, preparing myself to be able to get through it and still tell my story and then and still have words that would come out of my mouth while watching it. You can't close your eyes while you're in the courtroom, and so they really helped me through that. I credit them for saying, hey, this Thursday when you're here, you're going to see the video, so schedule therapy. And I would schedule therapy right after. Or if my therapist was booked, we would go out for beers. Or, it was just, they held my hand through all of that. And we actually, a lot of us went out on a little speaking tour to other first responding groups to talk about how to help someone through a trial. So, and yeah, it was very difficult, but when the time came to go there and be in front of the monster, and be able to tell my story, I did it. I sobbed through it, but I did it. And I'm proud to be able to do my part for justice still. I'm really proud that I was able to get through that. And truth be told, I first of all, I should add, in case anyone is wondering, you're never forced to do things like this. Like you can say no. So believe me, they were not forcing me to do any of this. But I will say that going through that, and it's a form of exposure therapy, to be able to see it over and over again and move through it and really in a healthy way talk about all the feelings and talk about exactly what happened. I don't have nightmares because I know every detail. My brain isn't trying to figure it out.
That's
it's a really healthy, I know it sounds bonkers, but it was a really healthy way to move through it. So because I partnered that with a heck of a lot of therapy. So it was a good way to do it.
You do credit your therapist for.
Oh, absolutely.
You must have found the right one right away, right?
Yes, I did. It's interesting. I everything happened, and I asked my Superman surgeon who if I could have a therapist, and he said, oh yeah, you could find one after. And I was like, I just got blown up by a terrorist. I need a therapist right now. And because it was, even though I have loving friends and family, like they can't help you through something like that. And they're also dealing with that stuff on their own. Their friend just got family member, daughter just got deeply injured. So I just knew I needed someone to like scream and cry and hit things with. And he said, okay, let me ask my wife, and his wife works in that field. And so one of their best friends is a trauma therapist, and he worked with a lot of the surviving families of 9/11 in a mass trauma event. And so I knew that was a good fit for me. His name is Dr. Cooper. He's now retired. And so we were a great fit. And then he retired in just about 6 months ago. And I was floored. My leg guy and my Superman surgeon, or not Superman surgeon, sorry, my leg guy and my therapist all announced their retirement within a week. Like my whole world got rocked. But I found a new therapist. It's someone who is mentoring underneath my old therapist, and she's fantastic. And it's nice to have a woman's perspective. I feel like I'm in good hands, and I'm still in search of a new leg guy. So we'll see.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I wanted to get into where you are now, and you've gone through so much
Mhm.
and you've shared so much. Do you find that to be cathartic?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yes.
It's something my new therapist and I are talking about a lot. I have found, like everyone during COVID, you reflect on what you're doing, you figure out, you have a lot of time with
Mhm.
yourself to have a lot of conversations with yourself. I still did a lot of public speaking. That's what I do for work. I did a lot of public speaking during COVID, but it's also, you know, you're still at home, you're not traveling, and it's not in front of people, in front of a
Right.
live audience. Um, and then when I got back into it and am very deep into it right now, and traveling all the time and speaking in front of groups, I'm realizing, not during the talk, that part I love, being on stage, love it,
Mhm.
sharing, love helping, but the meet and greets that used to not, I don't want to use the term bother. You can hear my voice still. I'm still processing through this. Uh, the meet and greets and more intimate face-to-face questions that I get during that time are starting to wear on me in a different way than they used to.
I see.
I don't know if that's because it's the 10-year anniversary this year.
Right.
I don't know if that's because I haven't had them in a long time during COVID, or because I'm thinking about things a little differently now. But one of the things, to answer your question, one of the things that happens all the time
Mhm.
is that because I'm so vulnerable and open and sharing on stage, I will then go to a meet and greet, which is always planned after. And someone will come up to me. And even here in Boston in the grocery store, this happens, whether I'm speaking or not. And someone will say, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what I saw that day." And they'll launch into what they saw on the sidewalk.
Uh,
And people think, "Oh, that probably only happens to Adrianne like once or twice." Because this is a shared trauma,
mhm.
and 260 people were injured. Hundreds of people witnessed this, whether it was on TV or in person, especially here in Boston. Every single person has a story.
Of course.
And only probably 1% of those people are in therapy for it. And so, because of that, because they're not in therapy for it, they see someone who's open about it. And suddenly their things that they haven't talked about have boiled up to the surface, and they desperately need to get them out. They don't think that that would happen in therapy for God knows what reason. And so they come to me and digest that and talk to me about it. And that is hard. That's hard. I'm just realizing that that's really hard.
Right. So
And
doing these talks before thousands of people is
it's
no
fine.
biggie,
Yeah,
right?
that's fine. But it's hearing that someone else saw some bloody something on the sidewalk. Like, why are you talking? I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah.
And so
If
I
anybody's
do want
hearing
to
this,
hear,
don't do that ever
don't
again.
do that. Yes, please don't do that. I do want to hear, "Oh, my friend didn't finish that year and now they finished in 2016 and it was amazing and that's great." I want to hear those stories. I
Yeah.
do want to meet people when I'm in the grocery store. Absolutely say hi,
Right.
but do not talk to me about the trauma that you faced. I
Yeah.
cannot handle it, and I'm not your therapist. And I
Thank you for
used to
sharing
feel
that.
bad saying that, like I was, but I don't want to, yeah. And it happens a lot. And I'm glad that they think I'm open and can talk about that, but I can't process your trauma for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're talking about running, that became part of your life. That
It sure
thing. Now you're
did.
going for the banana and the necklace.
Now I go for the banana and the statement necklace. Sure do. Yeah. Who knew that that banana could taste so good after 26.2 miles?
Yeah,
Who
I'm
knew?
always in awe of the runners, and I like to go down and watch myself. You have gone to bat to have the para help me out with that
Para division. Yeah,
the para
absolutely.
division.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I ran my first Boston Marathon in 2016 and was very
Woo-hoo.
undertrained, very, very, very undertrained. And you certainly know this, Kim, that when you are a resident of Boston, you see people running the marathon and you go, "Oh, that's amazing." And you consider yourself, a team member of everyone out there. And a lot of people get the charge to run it. And so I ran my first Boston Marathon in 2016 and came in dead last. And I was very undertrained and I had so much fun.
I love that.
And it was great. And I got my statement necklace and free banana and I was hooked. And I knew what it was like to come in dead last. And the competitor in me, left over from dance, thought, well, I wonder what it would be like to come in first. And I started to do some research and found out that there is no division for blade runners like me. And blade runners being an amputee who runs in a blade. I certainly could have taken up the hand cycle, but Tatiana McFadden is an incredible athlete. I barely have any arm strength. She's so powerful and great. I thought I could never compete with her. And also that's not how I run. So I thought, there are lots of other athletes out there that are incredible and also run like me. And so I fought really hard to advocate for para division. And I found out that there is no para division even in the Paralympics. They think we can't go further or harder than 200 meters on a track, which is frustrating.
Yeah, untrue.
And untrue. And so I went to a lot of amputee conferences and talked to a lot of people and found out that there are a lot of people like me that wanted run competitively and had some productive, constructive, difficult conversations with my very dear friends at the BAA, whom I love and admire. And I got a little faster and we finally got the division in 2020. So obviously 2020 hit and couldn't run that year, but we now have a competitive division for that. And I'm so grateful. And I mentor a lot of young girls who are going through their first year as an amputee, and to be able to tell them that and show them on TV when they see these runners that, they can do it too is really wonderful, because so often, people with disabilities are seen like, oh, if they can keep going, you can keep going, which is like, yeah, I'm living. Like, I'm not, like that just sounds that sounds bad to a lot of us.
I love how real you are. I mean,
oh, thanks. I understand it's a compliment from other people, but for us, we just want to be included and do the things that everybody else does and have it not seem weird or like, that we're just doing it also. So, and so I was really excited when we announced the para division at the press conference with the Boston Athletic Association. And that evening, those videos where friends are telling other friends that like, you can do it, or we're going to Disneyland, or you're getting a puppy, or whatever it is, these great big news, you're getting married or whatever it is. I had people sending me videos of them telling their friends who are amputees that they could one day win the Boston Marathon.
Oh,
it was like the best, most incredible, most inspiring thing. And it feels really good to have been a part of that advocacy, because now, it's the division is smaller when it starts, but that's the same way it was for women when we started running, right?
Yeah, they always show the video of the first woman getting pushed out of the race, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so wonderful to see, and I'm so proud that it's the Boston Marathon that was first to do it. They'll always be first. And I hope that, one day the field is impossible to get into, and, because there are so many fast runners. I hope that all the times that we've been able to do are smoked by all these runners. And, I have 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds sending me training videos, and they're going to smoke whatever time that. It's beautiful. Amazing.
That's so good. I mean, hey, we need to cover the fact that you came from being very last the first time ran to last year, 2022, when you ran with Shalane along your side, right?
Yes.
And what were you in third place?
I was in fourth place this past year. So
awesome.
I could have had third. Jackie took third. She was incredible. I slowed down a little bit because I didn't want it to end. I was having the best day of my life. And I had asked, we can have a support runner when we're out there. And they work similar to what a guide does for low vision and blind runners, and grabbing water and stuff. So I asked Shalane Queen Bee Flanagan to be my support runner, and she's answered immediately and said, heck yes. We had talked about and toyed around the idea of running together one year, and the stars aligned, and it was just such an incredible day to stand at the start line of the Boston Marathon. I'm going to cry with my name on my bib. I'm looking at it right now off camera, and in that division that I helped create, and look down and see all of the different toes toe the line. All the different blades, all the different toes, all the different things. And then to have Shalane by my side and matching outfits and matching fingernails. And
Oh my gosh.
it was just an incredible, of course I was spray tanned because I'll never take that out.
Can't give up some things, right?
Can't give up some things. You know, you can take the girl out of the ballroom, you can't take the ballroom out of the girl. So and then we ran and it was, you know, as you well know, and anyone in Boston knows, or any runner knows for that matter, that it's very hard to get a quote unquote perfect day for a marathon, right?
Right.
Whether you can't control the weather, you can't control exactly what your stomach will do that day or your nerves or what's going on around you. And Shalane, to her incredible credit, she's such a gifted runner and an even better coach and friend and sister in sport. And she really prepared me for anything that would happen that day. And I had wanted, you know, a certain temperature and a certain degree of humidity, which was hardly any. and I got it. Like it was the perfect weather that I could have ever imagined. The perfect person running next to me, the division, the sun shining. I'm filming my first big movie right now with IMAX.
Really?
They followed us they've been following me for about 4 years. I signed on this project about 5 years ago. We've been filming. And with every setback I've had of a rolled ankle or 2020 or whatever it is, we haven't been able to film the marathon, and finally the stars aligned. And they followed us in the marathon. So that'll be coming out at the Museum of Science in June.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see it. Oh my
So
God.
excited. I can't
That's
wait either.
amazing. Yeah,
Maybe by then it'll seem like the marathon was real if I see it in the movie.
just seeing all of the posts from last year was enough. Talk about tears. Oh my gosh, you and Shalane and just everything that you've done. It's just amazing. It's just so amazing. Now I know this year you're doing the 5K, right?
I am. I was gonna do the marathon, but even that night over champagne and French fries, Shalane and I were talking, and I was like, I'm never running another marathon. Like this was the best day of my life, and I truly mean it. The best day so far.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's the best day ever, that's great. It's a wonderful day to have. And
yeah.
And she said, I totally feel that way. You know, it's not her last, she's run since then, obviously, but she said, her good friend, my good friend too, Elise, ran New York and had the best day of her life. And so it's, you know, you can say, I never want to do it again. I'll never say never, but this year, especially with speeches and travel taking off again and the movie coming out, I decided to train for the 5K instead. And another reason for that, which the 5K is on the Saturday before the marathon. So it's still, you know, all the hype and everything from race weekend in Boston. And this year being the 10-year anniversary, I knew that my mental health would be needed to be more in the forefront. And it's hard to train for a marathon and have the bandwidth for anything else. So I'll do the 5K, and the 5K actually falls on the day of the 10-year anniversary. So
exact date, right?
Yeah, it's the 15th. And so I'll wake up that morning, run a 5K. I'd love to win it. I won the BA 10K. I'd love to win it, but honestly, just running across that finish line on the 10-year anniversary is going to be, you know, I could collapse and just in a pile of tears, and that would be okay too. So I'll shoot for the win. We'll see what happens. Anything can happen on race day. I'll have a couple Sam Adams beers and then get ready to cheer for everyone when they become unicorns on Monday.
All right. You know, my Zoom is just about to run out here. I've got 1 minute left, but that was a great way to end. And my time with you went so quickly.
It went quickly for me too. I'm so grateful that we were able to talk, and I appreciate being on your podcast, Kim. I listened to the one with the woman with the boards and the cheese boards that started. That was so inspiring, and I really loved it. So I'm eager to share this with my followers. It'll be
awesome. I'm going to, can I email you just to get like a headshot,
photos,
whatever it is you want to use, that kind of stuff. And then, I'll put something together. I'll have a video.